Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. To sustain the last objection, Mr. Martinez, you may continue.
Ma'am, we were talking about the car rental in Redding, California, and you ultimately were given a second car, correct?
Yes.
And the color of this car was white, correct?
Yes.
And that was more to your liking because of this issue involving the traffic citations, correct?
Yes.
And this car had a capacity of over 12 gallons per tank full, correct?
It was 10 or 12. I don't remember.
Well, okay. Do you remember, this is Exhibit 237.018. Do you remember filling up with gas in Winnemucca, Nevada?
I remember running out of gas in Nevada, and...
When you say that you ran out of gas, there was absolutely no gas in your car, or you were just running low?
It was... the gas light was on, so...
When you say that the gas light was on, doesn't mean that you're not moving. It means that you are low on gasoline, correct?
Yeah, it was kind of below.
Are you saying that that's where it happened in Winnemucca, Nevada?
No, I was probably, I think he said I was 15 or 20 miles from there.
And you were able to make it to Winnemucca, correct?
No, I pulled over.
And you pulled over and did what?
I went in and asked the guy where the nearest gas station is. He said it's about 15 miles. I think he said 15 miles further. I didn't think I would make it on E, so I went and started putting gas in the car, and he came out and assisted me.
And you were putting gas from what?
From one of the gas cans.
All right. And let's just take a look at this exhibit right here. And it indicates that it's your name, right?
Yes.
It's from Winnemucca, right?
Yes.
And it indicates that the amount that you purchased was 12.175 gallons, right?
Yes.
And you paid $49.91, correct?
That's right.
And this issue involving you running out of gas, that's not something that you told us on direct examination, correct? Yes,
No, I was not.
And so you have this car that has at least a capacity of 12 gallons, correct?
Approach.
Now, with regard to Winnemucca, you filled up your car with gas, didn't you?
Yes, I put gas in it.
All the way till it was full, right?
I probably, because I usually filled up until the
Yes or
nozzle
no?
clicked.
Yes or no? In Winnemucca, did you fill it up with gas?
I put gas in it. I probably filled it up.
So you're saying that you're not sure if you filled it up all the way with gas then, right?
That's right.
But you did make a purchase in Winnemucca pursuant to Exhibit 237.018 in which 12.175 gallons were purchased by you, right?
Yes.
And so it could be that the tank was 15 gallons of gas, right?
Overruled. You may answer.
Right?
That's possible.
But at least we know that this gas tank could hold at least 12.175 gallons of gas, right?
Right.
And before you went on this trip, it started on June 2nd of 2008, correct?
Yes.
Started around 5 o'clock in the morning, correct?
It was early in the mornings, around that time.
Because you were at Redding at 8 a.m., correct?
Yes.
Well, we saw the receipts. Were you here when the receipts were shown of you renting the car at approximately 8:01?
Yes, I was here.
And so if it takes you 1 to 2 hours to drive down there, that would mean you would have to get up pretty early, right?
Yes.
And so you got up pretty early, you drove down to Redding, but in anticipation of that, you actually called somebody by the name of Daryl Brewer, right?
Yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't get up early. I was up all night. So.
Pardon?
You said I got up early. I just wanted to make that clear. I was up all night. So.
Okay, so what you're saying is you didn't sleep that night, right?
I didn't sleep that night, no.
Okay. So, but you did, in anticipation of this trip, contact an old boyfriend, right?
Yes.
And that would be Daryl Brewer, right?
Yes.
You made a number of telephone calls to him, correct?
Probably.
And when you say probably, it means that you're not sure, right?
I'm not sure, no.
So you at least made 2 calls to him, though, right?
If that's what my phone records reflect, then that would be right.
Now, I'm asking what your memory reflects.
I don't remember actually calling him before leaving on my trip. And
So you have no idea as to whether or not you even called them before you went on the trip then, right?
I don't recall. Well, of course I called him before the trip, but I don't know how soon before the trip.
So you don't remember whether or not it was in May then, is that what you're saying?
I did talk to him in May,
And it was toward the end of May, correct?
probably.
And when you keep saying probably, it means that you're not sure, but that you do not deny that you made a call, right?
That's right.
And so you made this call to him at the end of May, and you asked him whether or not he had any spare gas cans for you to use, right?
That sounds right.
No, I'm not asking what sounds right. Is that what you did?
I think I did, because he's the one I ended up borrowing them from.
Well, ma'am, are you having trouble again with your memory with regard to events then?
Yeah, because there were a few different,
So the answer is yes. You are having trouble with your memory.
with that question.
Well, are you having trouble? It's not the only question that you've had trouble with. Are you having trouble with the memory of the events leading up to your trip?
Leading up to, yeah,
Okay.
a little bit.
And you would agree then that the events leading up to your trip were probably the end of May, and the killing was on June 4th of 2008. So are you saying that that whole period you're having problems with your memory? Or is it just the end of May?
Well, there are some things I recall and some things I don't.
So my question is, are you having trouble with both or just the end of May?
I'd say my whole life is like that, so both.
So you're saying that you're having trouble remembering everything or events throughout your life. Is that what you're saying?
Some things, not everything.
And sometimes you know what you can remember very well, and sometimes you can't. Is that what you're saying?
You mean can't at all or can't remember well?
Can't remember. Both well or at all?
Yeah,
Tell me.
all of the above.
And so at the end of May then, you're saying that you really don't remember whether or not you made a telephone call to Mr. Brewer. Is that what you're saying?
I don't remember specifically, but I know I called him at one point.
All right. And you did call him because you wanted to talk to him about some gas cans, right?
That wasn't the purpose of the call.
Well, that was what was discussed during that call, correct?
I think so, yes.
You're saying you think so? Yes, correct? That's
Yes.
what you're saying. And so one of the things that you told him in discussing these gas cans was that you were going to take a trip, right?
Yes,
And that the purpose for the gas cans was that you could put gas in them, right?
yes,
And the other thing that you told him was that the trip that you were going to make was going to be to Mesa, Arizona, right?
no,
You were here when he testified, correct?
yes,
And he's somebody that you've had I guess, a long-term relationship with, correct?
yes, about 4 years.
Pardon?
About 4 years we were in a relationship.
Right? And then even after that, you have had, if not a close friendship, you've had a friendship after the two of you split, correct?
It was more distant, but it was still a friendship.
Sure. And in fact, you felt comfortable. You still remembered his number, right? Telephone number, right?
Yes.
And you felt comfortable enough to ask him for a favor, right?
Certain favors, yes.
Well, that particular favor, you felt comfortable in asking him for that, right?
Which one? The gas cans?
Well, which other favor are we talking about? Are there more than one favor here that we've talked about?
I want to know what you're talking about.
No, I'm asking you. Do you remember that we started talking about gas cans? Do you remember that?
Yes.
That we've talked of nothing else other than gas cans so far. Is there anything else that you believe that we've talked about?
I wasn't sure, that's why I asked.
Ma'am, is there anything else that we have talked about?
I'm not sure, that's why I asked.
I'm asking you, is there anything else that has been posed to you other than this gas can issue involving Mr. Brewer?
Yes.
Objection, ask and answer badgering.
Sustained.
Now, you have this conversation with him involving the gas cans. It is more than one conversation, isn't it?
I don't remember.
And it could be more than one conversation. It's what you're telling us, right?
Yes.
And are you saying you did not tell him that you were going to go to Mesa when you spoke to him?
That's right, I told him after.
I'm asking you, The question is this: isn't it true that before you went on the trip, you told them you were going to Mesa?
No, that is not true.
All right. Isn't it true that as part of one or another conversation that you had, you told them that you were going to go to Arizona to visit some friends?
No, I said Utah.
You didn't. I'm asking you whether or not it's true that you told him that you were going to Mesa to visit some friends before you took the trip.
No, I said Utah.
I'm not asking you what you said, am I?
Objection, Badger, Your Honor.
Yeah, I think you are.
You're thinking. My question to you is asking you what you told them. Is that what you think it is? Whether or not you told them that you were going to go to Utah? Do you think that that's what the question was?
No.
The question was, isn't it true, ma'am, that you discussed with Mr. Brewer before the trip that you took that you needed the gas cans to go and visit friends in Mesa, Arizona? What is your answer to that?
My answer is no, I told him Utah.
And I'm asking you whether or not you think I'm asking you what you told him. Am I asking you what you told him?
That's kind of my interpretation of it. It's a yes or no question.
It is a yes or no question, isn't it?
And I answered no 3 times, yes.
And you also added something 3 times, didn't you?
Yes, the truth.
Am I asking you whether you're telling the truth?
You have asked me that.
Am I asking you right now if you're telling the truth?
I don't know, are you?
Well, have you heard that question prior to you saying that?
Yes.
You heard that question immediately before I'm telling the truth. The prosecutor asking you if you were telling the truth, you heard the prosecutor say that.
Not immediately.
Pardon?
Not immediately.
So the answer is yes or no. Did you hear the question immediately before you gave the answer that you were telling the truth?
No, not immediately.
So you did have these conversations with Mr. Brewer, and you decided to get the gas cans. Why don't you just go and buy some gas cans?
They were expensive.
And when you say they were expensive, how much is a gas can?
I don't remember, but it wasn't in my budget for my travels.
And you wanted 2 of them, right?
I don't know, I guess whatever you had.
So if you would have had 6, you would have taken 6?
No, they wouldn't have fit.
And these gas cans, when you picked them up, where did you put them?
In the trunk.
In the back?
Yes.
So you rented this car, and this car had some floor mats, correct?
No, it did not.
So then you get into this car, and you pick it up, you go back to sleep, right?
Yes, back at my brother's house.
I didn't ask you where, did I?
No.
I asked you if you went back to sleep, right?
Yes.
So you went back to sleep, and at some point, you then started to go on your trip for reals, right?
Okay, yeah.
All right, and about what time was that?
I want to say late morning, but I'm not too sure.
And you then drove south till you got to the Monterey, California area, correct?
I stopped again and slept, and then continued driving south.
What did you say?
I stopped again and slept, and then I continued driving south.
Did anybody ask you whether or not you slept?
Well, you just asked me.
I asked you whether or not you slept. Is that what my question was?
Yes, you asked if I went to sleep.
No, I asked you when you started your trip, did you make it to Monterey, California? Do you remember me asking you that?
I remember you asking something like that, but not worded that way.
When you say something like that, again, it seems that you have a problem with your memory. Do you have a problem with your memory today?
Not in this particular case.
Okay, so after you woke up, after sleeping at your sister's house, did you begin your trip?
Yes.
And did you eventually make it to the Monterey, California area?
Yes.
And what time did you get there?
It was very, very late. I think it was even the 3rd in the morning because we had stopped in Santa Cruz first.
So you got there on the 3rd, you believe, but in any event, it was late, correct?
Yeah, it was past midnight, I think, by the time we got to Monterey.
And so in terms of miles, how many miles are we talking about?
From where to where?
From the place that you left your sister to Monterey, wherever it is that you went, and you arrived around midnight or after, or in the early morning hours of June 3rd.
Well, I'm not particularly sure. I'd say somewhere in the ballpark of 500 miles.
And so,
I know more by hours, not miles.
okay, how many hours then?
From Reading to Santa Cruz, it was approximately 6.5 to 7 hours.
And in Santa Cruz, did you meet anybody?
Yes,
And that's where you met Mr. McCartney, correct?
yes, and his roommate.
And did I ask you again if you met his roommate?
You asked if I met anybody.
No, I asked you if you met Mr. McCartney. Do you remember that question?
Yes, and I answered yes.
And so you met Mr. McCartney, and you spent the night at a place where he was living, right?
Yes.
And what time did you get up the next morning?
I don't remember, but it would have been in the morning.
I understand it was the morning. Would it have been really early, or would it not be so early in the morning?
It would have been before Jack had to go to school, so whatever time that was, it couldn't have been too late.
What time did Jack have to go to school?
I don't remember.
And so, did you have plans already to meet up with Mr. McCartney, or is it a situation where you got on the phone on the road, called him up, and said, hey, I'm coming down there, can we meet?
It was definitely beforehand because I was going to crash there.
So, when did you speak to him beforehand? Was it a week or so before? Was it days before you left? What was it?
I don't know. We spoke here and there. I don't know.
All right, and did Mr. McCartney go with you the next morning to meet with Mr. Brewer?
No.
So you did go over to Mr. Brewer's house, and one of the reasons that you went over was to talk to or see Jack, the son, right?
That was one of the reasons.
And you also had breakfast there, correct?
Yes.
And you also checked your email there, correct?
I think it was my MySpace
Pardon?
email. Yeah, what was my MySpace account? I
Well,
think I
when you
checked.
say that you checked your MySpace account, is your email included in the MySpace account?
There is an email system, but not my main email.
I'm asking if you checked when you checked your MySpace account, did you check any email in the MySpace account?
I don't remember.
Did you check, you mentioned that you had another email system. Did you check that other email system?
I don't remember. Probably not. I think it was just MySpace.
And what was the purpose for checking that, the MySpace account?
Hadn't done it in a few days, so
And so you check that, and then at some point, you get some gas cans, right?
yes.
And when in this whole sequence of event do you get the gas cans?
Sometime while I was visiting with him. I don't remember how it happened.
Was it before or after Jack left for school?
I don't remember.
And what color were the gas cans?
They were red
And where did you put them?
in the trunk.
And that would be in the back, correct?
Yes.
Where was your luggage?
In the trunk.
Same place with the same area as the gas cans?
Yes.
And how much time do you spend there with Mr. Brewer?
I don't know. I think it was somewhere like a half hour, it felt like. I don't really remember.
And then you leave, right?
Yes.
But you come back again, right?
Yes.
To return a remote, right?
Right.
What kind of remote are you returning?
It was for either his TV or his DVD player, I think.
How is it that it found its way into your car?
I don't know. I think that
Well, don't speculate. You don't know, right?
No, it was already with him. I drove away with it on accident. I don't know how I got it.
All right. And then after you returned it, you drove to Salinas, right?
Yes.
And in Salinas, you did a number of things, right?
Not really. I just did a few things.
Pardon?
I just did a few things.
Right. You did your nails, right?
Yes.
And you said it took quite a while, right?
I had to wait for a while. Yes.
In other words, the doing of the nails didn't take a long time. The fact that you probably didn't have an appointment is what took some time, right?
Yes. There are no appointments there.
And then you left Salinas and continued your trip, right? And this would be on the 3rd, right?
That's correct.
About what time was it?
It was afternoon, but I don't know what time.
You told us about the gas cans from Mr. Brewer, right?
That's right.
But you forgot to tell us something else, didn't you?
You haven't asked me yet.
Well, isn't it true that there was more than 2 gas cans involved here, right?
Yes.
And you testified on direct examination involving the gas cans, didn't you?
Yes.
And you never testified about a 3rd gas can, did you?
No.
And this 3rd gas can, you actually bought it in Salinas, didn't you?
Yes.
And you bought it from Walmart, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And now, not only do you have 2 5-gallon gas cans, you have another gas can. How many, what's the capacity of this one?
It was the same size. No, I think it was, I don't know, it was the same size, I think.
You think it was, so now you have a capacity of 15 gallons, right?
At that moment, I did.
Well, you're saying like at that moment. Did the size of these gas cans change so that it would go from a 15-gallon capacity down to a lesser capacity?
Objection. Badger.
I sustain the objection.
With regard to, you keep saying that at that point you had that capacity. Was there something involving these gas cans that would not allow you to fill them up to their capacity later on?
Yes, there was.
And what is that?
I returned the gas can.
You returned it back, right?
Yes.
So that you now have a capacity of still 10 gallons, right?
Yes.
Maximum, right?
Yes.
So then why is it, ma'am, that when you go to the ARCO, you fill up with gas, you remember that?
Yes.
And then you go inside and exhibit number 237.012, do you see that there?
Yes.
That's a capacity of 10 gallons, right? Or approximately, it's 9.5494 gallons, right?
Yes.
And then 237.013, it's 2.77 gallons, right?
Where does it say that? Oh, yeah, I see that.
So you're saying that these gas cans then have a larger capacity now?
I don't know what the capacity was.
Well, you remember Mr. Brewer saying they were 5-gallon gas cans, right?
I don't know if he said that or not.
You were here when he testified, right?
I was physically here, yes. Sometimes I space out.
Pardon?
I was physically here, yes. Sometimes I space out.
And so you're saying that throughout the trial you may have spaced out and not paid attention to what's going on?
During other people's testimonies, sometimes my mind wanders.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
And you don't remember then specifically what Mr. Brewer may have said. Is that what you're saying?
I remember some things he said. Almost all.
But not everything.
Not every single thing.
Well, 237.011. Do you see that it says ARCO and it's in Pasadena?
Yes.
Do you see the address there?
Yes.
What's the address? Read it for me.
3706 East Foothill Boulevard.
And the city and state?
Pasadena, California, 92553.
And it does talk about a debit account. You see that?
Yes.
Talks about a date of June 3rd, 2008, right?
Yes.
And a time of 8:42 p.m., right?
Yes.
And then it talks about being at pump number 2. Do you see that?
Yes.
And then it talks about the amount of gallons that are involved, right?
Yes.
8.301 gallons. And there's the price there, right?
Yes.
That is for you filling up the car, isn't it?
I don't know.
Well, you were there though, right?
Yes.
And this is first in the sequence at 8:42 p.m., right?
Yes.
And you don't know whether or not this is part of filling up the car with gas then?
I don't remember what order I filled
All
out.
right, well, you remember that we're talking about 2 5-gallon gas cans, right?
Yes.
5 plus 5 is 10, right?
That's right.
This is 8.301. Do you see that?
Yes.
So this is not the capacity, if you will, of the up to 10 gallons for those 2 gas cans, correct?
It has that capacity, so that's not correct. It's not the maximum capacity.
No, it isn't, right? So there's no reason to believe that this could be the gas cans. If you're going to take these gas cans, presumably you're going to fill them up to the top, right?
Objections, presuming something that's not in evidence.
Restate your question.
You were taking those gas cans for a reason, right?
Yes.
And that was to have extra gas, right?
Originally it was.
Yes
so
or
that
no? Was it to have extra gas available to you?
At one point, yes. At another point, no.
Well, and if you want to have extra gas available to you, don't you want to have the maximum amount?
I guess.
Well, no, you were driving. You're the one that asked to borrow these gas cans. If you have let's just say 10 gallons of space available, and you want to make sure that you have enough gas, wouldn't you fill it up to approximately 10 gallons?
Objection, what's the relevancy of this? It's 8.3 gallons.
I don't know.
Ma'am, what's going on is that Exhibit 237.001 is you filling up that Ford Focus with gas, isn't it?
I don't remember what order I filled up.
And this was at 8:42 p.m., right?
Yes.
And you went and you pumped your own gas, didn't you?
Yes.
And then and you paid with a debit card. Do you see that?
Yes.
You had a MasterCard back then, right?
I don't remember what it was, MasterCard or Visa.
But you paid for that with a credit card or Visa or MasterCard, whatever it was, right?
Yes.
With regard to the gas that you purchased inside, which is 237.012, you paid cash, right?
That's right.
And cash is harder to track in terms of sales than a credit transaction. Wouldn't you agree?
Not if you save the receipt.
Not if you save your receipt. What if you don't save your receipt, ma'am? Wouldn't you agree that a cash transaction is harder to keep track of than a credit transaction?
Yes, I would agree with that.
And in this case, you initially said, I want to pay $40, right?
Yes.
And then it's the amount of gallons that you got for that was 9.594 gallons, correct?
Yes.
And that was the $40, right?
Yes.
Do you see the time there?
That would be 10:53.
Well, how about 8:46:50? If you see the 20:46:50, wouldn't that be 8:46:50?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That's correct.
And that is 4 minutes after the transaction in 237.001. Do you see that?
Yes. Wait, what was the other time? I'm sorry.
There's 8:42.
Okay.
You see that?
Yes.
8:46:50. Do you see that?
Yes. I was sorry. I was looking at the other time on the top.
Do you see that right there?
Yes.
It's 8:46:50, right?
Okay.
So that's 4 minutes after the transaction. That's the debit transaction, right?
Yes.
And then you have 237.013. It's the same ARCO, right?
Yes.
And this one is at what time?
This one is at. What time was it?
How about 8:53?
53. Yes.
And that's 5 minutes later than the transaction involving the approximately 10 gallons of gas, right?
Yes.
And during that time, that 5 minutes, that would allow you to go from the inside out to your car again, wouldn't it? 5
Yes.
minutes. It was that close, correct?
Yes.
And the time span between Exhibit 237.001, which is 8:42, to the next one, which is 8:46, which is 4 minutes, that would give you time to go back between the car and the register or inside the store, correct?
Yes.
And so now, we know that at that particular gas station, you spent 237.011, 011, I'm sorry. It's $35 there, right?
Yes.
And 6 cents, but let's leave the cents aside. And 237.012, that's $40. So far you spent $75 in gas, right?
Yes.
And then if you add from 237.013, if you add 9, because we're rounding up, you're now talking $84 in gas that you spent, right?
I don't know, I'm not good at math, but okay.
Assuming the math is correct, it's
Assuming math is correct.
it's between $80 and $84 in gas that you spent, correct?
Yes.
And so you've now driven all the way down there, and one of the reasons that you told us on direct examination that you wanted these gas cans was that gas was cheaper in Arizona and Utah. Do you remember telling us that on direct?
No, I said Nevada and Utah.
All right, gas is cheaper in Nevada and Utah, right?
Yes.
You weren't filling up in Nevada or Utah, were you?
No.
You were filling up in California, right?
Yes.
Where the gas is as expensive there as it is probably throughout the state, right?
No. And
Or well, it was expensive in California, isn't it?
more than Nevada and Utah, yes.
And so you had actually, and California is kind of a progressive state in the sense that it has gas stations almost everywhere, doesn't it?
Objection, foundation, relevance.
Restate your question.
On your travels on that date, you went from the Monterey area down to Salinas. Any trouble seeing any gas stations there?
No.
From Salinas all the way down to Pasadena. Any problem seeing any gas stations there?
No.
So it seems that your fears about gas in California were not well founded then, right? There was gas in places that you were traveling in California, right?
I didn't have any fears in California of that, so no.
You had fears somewhere else, correct?
Yes.
Arizona, for example, right?
No.
Well, you did end up going through Arizona, right?
Yes, I did.
And so, presumably, is that where the fears were, in Arizona?
No, I'd driven that highway many times. I knew where the gas stations were there.
So you didn't really have a need for gas if you're going to drive through Arizona then, right?
No, that's right, yes.
Pardon?
That's right.
And you were telling us, though, that approximately every 150 to 170 miles, your car was running out of gas. Do you remember telling us that?
150 to 170 miles?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't remember saying that.
Well, do you remember that you said that you had problems with that your Ford Focus had problems with gas, that it was using too much gas on direct examination?
I remember running out quickly, yes.
Well, you told us that this car, the Ford Focus, was using an inordinate amount of gas, correct?
No, that wasn't my thought.
Well,
It ran out of gas quickly.
you told us that from Pasadena, then you filled up at Desert Center, right?
Yes.
That's approximately 170 miles down the road, right?
I don't know.
Well, you drove it.
It sounds right.
Objection, foundation, she asked, man.
Sustain, ask another question.
And after that, you then said that you drove out to Buckeye and you filled up there, right?
Yes.
That's approximately another 170 miles, right?
Objection, foundation.
Overruled.
I guess.
Well, you did drive that, though. You
Yes,
did
I
tell
did.
us that, right?
Yes.
And you told us that both of those times you filled up, right?
Yes.
And you filled that car up with 12 gallons of gas approximately every time, right?
Whatever it would have been, I filled up, I think.
Well, if you were running low, we've already seen the capacity, then it would be approximately 12 gallons, wouldn't it?
Objection,
Yes.
foundation,
I guess.
Sustained.
Ma'am, you said that you filled up in Winnemucca, right? And your car was low, ran out of gas, right?
It did not run out of gas. I was low.
Oh, so it didn't run out of gas, and yet you were able to put over 12 gallons worth of gas in Winnemucca, correct?
That's correct.
And so if you are running low on gas in Desert Center, that would mean that you would put approximately 12 gallons worth of gas, right?
Approximately.
And then from that point over to Buckeye, you said you put gas into the car again, right?
Yes, I did.
So that would mean that you would put another 12 gallons worth of gas in the car if it was running low, based on the previous computations.
Overruled. You may answer.
If you base it on those computations, but I stopped in Buckeye because the Shell station there always had cheap gas.
I'm not asking you whether or not it had cheap gas, right? Am I?
No.
Do you remember that on direct examination, the way you prefaced this was that, oh, this car used an inordinate or a lot of gas. Do you remember telling us that portion?
Yes.
And that as a consequence of that, do you remember telling us that you stopped at Desert Center, right? And
Yes,
put gas in it.
I did.
And then you also said, and because of this problem that it was running low on gas, you also stopped in Buckeye, right? You told us that,
Yes,
right?
I did.
So if this car is running low on gas, that means that it's close to empty, right?
Yes,
And so that would mean that if it's close to empty, it would be around 12 gallons that you put at Desert Center inside the car, tank, right?
approximately.
Approximately. And then it would be another 12 gallons worth of gas there at Buckeye, right?
Presumably, yes.
Well, given the computations that we have going. And then you made your way over to Mesa, right?
Yes, I did.
And how long did it take you to get to Mesa?
That hour of the morning, not long because there was no traffic.
And how much gas did you use?
I don't know.
And all the while you have these gas cans full of gas, right?
Yes, I did.
And because you filled up in Pasadena, correct?
Yes.
And where did you put these gas cans?
They were in my trunk.
And again, in the back part of the trunk?
Yes.
And you maintain that this third gas can, that you did not have a third gas can then, right?
No, not at that time.
When you keep saying that at that time, I'm asking after Salinas, you did not have that gas can, right?
That's correct.
Take a look at 237.008. Do you see that? Do you see the receipt?
Yes.
And at the very bottom it says 5G. That actually means 5 gallons, right?
Yes.
Caro Carb is the type of gas can, correct?
Yes.
And it's $12.96, right?
Yes.
Ma'am, at the time that you bought it, one of the things that you were telling us was that you were very financially strapped, for lack of a better phrase, right?
That's right.
So if you want to save on gas, which is on the price of gas, which is what you say is your ultimate goal, right?
At the time that I wanted gas cans, that was my ultimate goal.
So that was your ultimate goal at the time that you talked to Mr. Brewer, right?
That's correct.
So if you want to save on gas, why is it then that you're willing to pay $13 for a gas can, which would increase, if you will, the price of travel
Well,
by $13?
that wasn't a calculation that I made when I bought it. That's why I returned it.
Do you have the receipt that you took it back?
I didn't get a receipt.
So Walmart did not give you any documentation whatsoever when you took that gas can back?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm asking you just whether, I just want to be as clear as we can about this. You believe that when you took that gas can back, Walmart did not give you any written document evidencing that or showing that?
I don't recall having
Okay.
to fill anything out or any documents regarding that, no.
You weren't even given a printout or anything at all, right?
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying I don't remember.
And you would agree, though, that if you bought the gas can and it was approximately $13, it would not make any financial sense if you were looking to save for gas, correct?
I do agree with that.
And the other thing is, if you're looking to save for gas and you're trying to do this, wouldn't it have made more sense to have filled up in Pasadena, then driven up to Nevada, if that's where you were going, and once you get to Nevada, fill up the gas cans? Wouldn't it have made more sense then?
Yes, it would have if that were my goal.
Well, your goal at that time when you were filling up was to travel up to Utah, didn't you tell us that?
Yes,
So you didn't do that though, right?
I did not end up going directly to Utah.
I'm not saying whether or not you ended up going directly to Utah. At the time that you filled up these cans, your plans were to go to Utah, weren't they?
Yes,
Because of the time on there, correct?
yes,
Previously, you had told us that you didn't speak to Mr. Alexander until after that, right?
that's right.
In fact, you were at getting some coffee or something, right? At Starbucks, something like that, or some drink at Starbucks, correct?
Yeah, strawberry drink.
Right, at Starbucks, right?
Yes,
And so, if you are going to go from Pasadena to Nevada, you can make it on a tank of gas, can't you? Cover roll.
I've never driven that freeway, so, I mean, this is the USA, so I would guess yes, but I've never driven that road, especially not at night, so.
You didn't think that perhaps all that way from Pasadena to Las Vegas, there wouldn't be a gas station? Did you believe that that was the case?
No, I didn't believe that was the case.
So if you really are trying to save on gas, you would have continued driving through California and filling up in California until you got to Nevada. And then you would have been able to purchase the cheaper gas, right?
That was a long question. I'm sorry, will you say it again?
Well, it would have made more financial sense for you to keep driving from Pasadena northbound, northeastbound, until you got closer to the border, right?
That's right.
And then when you got to Nevada, then it would have made more sense to fill the gas cans, right?
Financially, yes.
And that was your goal, correct?
At the time I got the gas cans, that was my goal.
Your goal changed, apparently, is what you're saying, right?
I still wanted to save gas, but my priority changed.
Okay, and so with regard to exhibit number 237.012, this is the one that's approximately 10 gallons. And then 237.013, it's approximately 2.7 gallons. You see that?
Yes,
You were the person that actually put the gas into the gas cans, right?
that's right.
And you know that one of the gas cans was 5 gallons, right?
Yes.
The other was 5 gallons, right?
Well, I believe it was because that's what Daryl said.
They were the same size, weren't they?
They were the same size.
And so if that's the capacity, the most that each can carry is about 10 gallons, right?
Yes, I guess.
Yet you were able to put 10 gallons plus 2.774 gallons in containers, weren't you?
No, I think the other one, the 10-gallon, was probably the car.
Was what?
Probably the car, I would guess.
What did you, tard?
Car.
So you're saying that this one right here, 237.012, went to the car.
That's very possible.
And you're saying that this one right here, 237.001, went into the gas can. Is that what you're saying?
That sounds right.
Okay. Why are you breaking it up then, this purchase? If you're going to put 10 gallons in the gas can, what you're saying is you went to the pump, went to the gas cans, and you put 8.3 gallons worth of gas in it, right?
Yes.
Then you made that debit transaction, right?
Yes.
And then you put gas in the car, according to you, right
Yes.
here, at 8:46, right?
Right.
You went inside to do that, right?
I think so, yes.
Well, no, it says initial payment. You can't pay at the pump, right?
Sometimes you can, but I don't
Well,
know
you
about a
think you can pay at the
prepayment.
pump there, right?
If I remember correctly, I don't know about ARCO, so, I mean, I prepaid is what I know.
Yeah, you did prepay, and you prepaid inside, didn't you?
Objection, ask and answer.
Sustained.
Well, ma'am, let's just get to the bottom of this. You say that you don't know. It's 237.012. Do you see right here?
Oh, yes, clear.
Well, let me just ask the question.
Yes,
And that was around 9 o'clock in the evening, right?
somewhere that sounds right.
Well, that's what you told us. Can you give us a closer approximation?
No.
So you go there, and one of the things that you said is that you've got a strawberry drink, something like that?
Yeah, strawberry frappuccino.
And while you were there, you call Mr. Burns, right?
I don't know if I called him from Starbucks, but I know we talked a few times that night.
And the plan was still for you to go up to Utah, right?
Yes,
And if you were to leave Pasadena at about the time that you said that you were going to leave, you would have arrived up in the West Jordan area at about maybe 10, 11 o'clock the next morning, right?
if I drove straight through, I think that's right.
It's about a 12-hour drive, I think is what you testified to, right?
That sounds right, yes.
But in talking to Mr. Burns, you never told him that you were not going to go straight to Utah, did you?
Judge, I have a question about when I did.
No, because I was going to go.
So the answer is no, you didn't, right?
No, I didn't tell him that.
In any conversations prior to arriving in Mesa that night or the next morning, you never communicated to Mr. Burns that you were going to take a detour, did you?
No, I didn't.
And you never contacted Matthew McCartney to tell him that you were going to take a detour, right?
I attempted to contact him before I decided to drive out to Mesa, I think.
Answer is you didn't let him know, though, right?
No, he didn't answer.
The bottom line is he didn't know either, right?
That's right.
And Mr. Brewer, you didn't call to let him know that either, right?
I think I called him too. I called both of them because I couldn't find my car charger or my phone charger. It was a phone charger.
You called both of them, but you didn't let either of them know of the change in plans, correct?
Say that again.
You called both of them at whatever time, but you never informed either of them of the change in plans, your supposed change in plans, right?
Yes, that's correct.
One of the things that you took on this trip, of course, was the gas cans, right?
Yes, I did.
Right. The other thing that you took when you took this trip was that you also brought a gun, didn't you?
Absolutely not.
Well, do you remember having a conversation on June 10th of 2008 with Detective Flores of the Mesa Police Department?
Yes, I do.
You initiated that call by calling him first, right?
Yes, I did.
And after you called him, he called you back, right?
Yes.
And I think previously you said, well, I called him to sort of find out what was going on with the investigation, right?
Yes.
That was one of the reasons, right?
Yes.
You wanted to know what was going on, right?
Yes.
And during that conversation, you and he discussed a number of things, right?
Yes.
And during that time that you were talking to him, part of the purpose was, at that time, again, not only to get information, but the way you put it was to also sort of cast suspicion away from you, right?
Yes, for the time being. That was
Well, that phone call, one of your objectives was to get the detective to look somewhere else, right? Not you.
Yes.
And we know the reasons, but some of the reasons was that you didn't want to be incarcerated or be involved in the prosecution for this particular killing, right?
That would be accurate.
And so what you were doing, part of this telephone call, was in your best interest. In other words, you were trying to do things that benefited you, right?
I wouldn't put it like that.
Well, you were doing things so that he wouldn't see you as a suspect, right?
Yes.
So if he didn't see you as a suspect, that would benefit you, right?
I guess it depends on how you look at it.
Well, no, I'm asking how you would look at it. If you don't want him to think of you as a suspect, that's the goal. That's part of the goal, right?
That was part of the goal for the call.
Right.
Yes.
That was part of the goal for the call. And so you wouldn't say anything, at least in a planned way, you wouldn't say anything that would make it look like you were a suspect, right?
I would attempt to not say anything.
Right. And it would be based on the world of knowledge that you had at that time, right?
I guess.
Well, no. You wouldn't call up and say, oh, I was the person that killed Mr. Alexander. You're not calling to say that, right?
No, I wasn't ready to say that.
No. And you're not calling to say, you know, you really should look at this part of the desert because that's where I threw the gun, right?
No.
No, what you were trying to do is you were trying to say, look, I'm giving you all the information that I know so that you can look at somebody else, right?
I wasn't thinking of somebody else, just I was thinking not me.
All right, I'm giving you this information so that you don't look towards me, right?
Yes.
So when you are doing that, you wouldn't purposely say things to hurt you, would you? Hurt your case.
I don't know.
You think that you would purposely say things to hurt your case?
Probably not. That wasn't really my goal.
No, that wasn't your goal, so you really wouldn't, would you? But you, right?
I didn't consider it my case, but no, I wouldn't say things intentionally to hurt myself.
Okay, but you and he did talk about whether or not Mr. Alexander owned a gun, right?
Yes, I did.
And at that time, you did not know that you were being tape recorded, or do you?
I assumed I was.
You assumed it was, but you didn't know, right?
I was told it was.
Who told you that it was? Did the detective tell you in advance?
An attorney told me.
In advance of you making the call?
Yes.
So you knew before you made the call that your conversation with the detective was going to be taped, right?
They said they are, yes.
So all the more reason then, knowing that it's going to be taped, it's all the more reason for you to be on the lookout, if you will, or be careful to not say anything to, incriminate you.
Yes.
Right? And so, knowing that, you still made a statement about a gun, didn't you?
Yes, I didn't follow the attorney's counsel.
I'm not asking you whether or not you followed anybody's counsel. I'm just asking you, ma'am, whether or not you made a statement involving a gun.
Yes, I did.
And it isn't like Detective Flores came looking for you, right?
You mean physically?
No, called you. He never called you first, right?
First, no, he didn't.
No, you were the one that actually sought him out, right?
Yes.
And he returned your call, right?
Yes.
At that point, for all you knew, he didn't even know that you even existed, for all you knew, right?
No, I already knew that he knew.
Well, how could you possibly know what he knows, ma'am?
I was going off of hearsay.
Well, but you don't really, it's what people tell you, but you don't know what he really knows, do you?
Do I know what he knows inside his head? No, I don't. But I knew that he knew about my name.
No, that's what you believe, but you don't know that, right?
That's what I had a strong belief.
All right, and so you made a statement, and that statement is Exhibit 273. Let's listen to it.
All right. Can I call you again if I need more information, or if I have another question? Do you have any questions I can answer for you?
Yeah, do you know when all this happened? I mean, I got a call last night, but is there any word on...
Sometime between Thursday and last night. We're not sure yet. We haven't pinpointed yet.
And you said that maybe multiple people, because he's a big guy. Maybe you can't talk about this, but was there like any kind of weapons used, or was there a gun? Was there?
I can't say what type of weapon was used, but yeah, I'm guessing there was a weapon used by the type of injuries that were left behind. Do you know of him having any weapons at all in the house?
His two fists.
That's it?
Really?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. No handguns or rifles or...
No, he wasn't one to keep any of that I knew of.
Fighting
He's
knives
good.
or anything like that?
No, he was more into like wrestling and UFC, and he had he said he had just bought a punching bag, and he's like, I love punching the crap out of my punching bag,
Yeah,
but-
that's what I'm...
That was you on that recording, correct?
Correct.
And that was you talking to the detective about whether or not Mr. Alexander had any handguns, right?
That's right.
And that was you saying at that time, the day after you were notified that his body was discovered, that's you saying, no, he doesn't have any guns, right?
Yes, that's right.
And that was the truth, wasn't it?
No, that wasn't the truth.
Are you saying that you lied to him again?
Yes.
So whenever it doesn't suit you, it's a lie, right?
That's not true.
Well, let's review. When you spoke to him back then in June 10th of 2008, you talked about a lot of other things, right? You talked about what was going on with the case, right?
What little he could tell me, yes.
And what little you could tell him, right?
Yes.
You talked about your relationship with Mr. Alexander, right?
Somewhat, yes.
Right,
We didn't get into a lot of detail.
right. You talked about potentially when his body was found, right? Or when it happened, right?
Yes.
And it's clear from what the detective was saying that at that point, he didn't even know when the killing had occurred, right?
He gave a time range.
Actually, he said it Thursday. Do you remember him saying Thursday?
Yes,
It wasn't Thursday that it happened, right?
that's correct.
So when he said Thursday, you knew he was wrong, right?
I thought he was lying, but yeah.
Well, but you knew that was wrong,
I knew
correct?
that was not true.
You had all the cards when you called, or you had all the information when you called the detective. Isn't that true?
Barring my memory gaps, what I knew, yeah, I had information.
You knew that you had been the person that had killed him. You knew that, right?
Yeah,
You know that you had been there on June 4th, right?
yes,
You know what had happened when you arrived there, right?
yes,
So the point being that back then, you didn't know what your defense was going to be back on June 10th of 2008 when you made that comment.
I don't really know what you mean by that.
Well, you didn't know it was going to be important back then in 2008, this issue involving the gun, and that's why when he asked you about it, you said no, he doesn't have any guns, because it wasn't important at that point because you couldn't foresee the future.
That's not why I said that.
Well, you said it though, right?
Yes, I did.
And there was no indication that, for example, that it was a lack of sophistication on your part in saying that.
It was a calculated statement.
It was a calculated statement, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it wasn't a situation where it was a technique by the police officer, was it?
Objection calls for speculation. She doesn't know.
Sustained.
Well, one of the things that were you here when Detective Flores testified?
Yes.
And the issue of techniques was discussed, correct?
Yes.
At that time, when you called him, you were the person that was actually, for lack of a better term, running the conversation.
I wouldn't.
Calls for speculation again regarding techniques.
I wouldn't say I was running the conversation.
You could have stopped that at any time, right?
Yes.
If we compare it to July 15th, on July 15th, you couldn't have walked out, right?
I could have stopped the conversation, but not walked out.
Right, you could have stopped it, but you could have, whereas in this case, not only could you have stopped the conversation, but you could have walked and done whatever it is that you wanted, right?
That day, yes.
Right, and that's the day that we're talking about, right?
Yes.
And if you would have wanted to ask him more questions, it's clear that he would have talked to you more, right?
Yes.
And on that date, on June 10th of 2008, if you would have wanted to tell him that you knew more about it, he would have listened to you, wouldn't he?
Yes.
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Do you think, ma'am, that if, in your opinion, that you, based on what you feel about the conversation, do you feel that if you were going to tell Officer Flores about what you knew had happened on June 4th, do you think that you would have been stopped from talking?
No, I don't think so.
Right, he would have listened to you, right?
Yes.
Yet you made that particular statement on that day, right?
Yes.
And it's because it is the truth, right?
No, it's not the truth.
You and Mr. Alexander never went shooting any guns, right?
No.
And you never saw Mr. Alexander with that gun in his hand, ever, did you? Any gun in his hand, right?
That's not true.
So you did see him with guns in his hand when you were with him.
At one time I did, yes.
And were the guns his?
It was not guns plural, it was one gun, and it was his.
So he had a gun back then?
Yes.
When was this?
I discovered it in the fall 2007.
No. I'm asking in terms of Mr. Alexander being the owner of a gun. When do you say that you knew he was the owner of a gun?
The fall 2007.
Is this the gun that we're talking about that you claim was used in the shooting?
It is the one.
That's what you claim, right?
Yes.
And with regard to that particular gun, you said that you supposedly found it somewhere. Where was the ammunition for it?
Inside the gun.
Inside where?
I guess it was inside the gun.
Do you even know if it was loaded?
He told me it was not loaded. But
So you don't even know if it was loaded, and you claim that he told you it wasn't loaded, right?
in the fall when I found it, he said it was not loaded.
Okay, so you believe it's not loaded, and you haven't received any statements to the contrary, right?
No, he took it one night when he was...
So you haven't received any statements to the contrary, right?
From him, I did receive statements to the contrary.
But knowing that then, according to you, now you say that he had a gun in 2007, you got on the phone and you said, no, Mr. Alexander didn't have any weapons, or no, any guns. You said that specifically, right?
Yes.
And now you come in and you tell us that, yes, he does have guns, or at least one gun, right?
At least one that yeah.
Right. Your grandfather also had guns, didn't he?
Yes, he had rifles and shotguns.
And he also had smaller guns too, didn't he?
I don't think so. Not plural.
Okay, he had a small gun then, right?
I don't know what it was.
Well, do you remember?
How small it was.
Pardon?
I don't know how small it was.
Well, was it one of those big long ones with the big long barrel?
Those are the only kinds I'd ever seen.
Right, so when you spoke to the detective about the gun that could have possibly been taken in the burglary, you indicated that it was a toy gun. Do you remember telling him that it looked like a toy gun?
No, I indicated that's what my grandfather said.
Right, and do you have any reason to doubt your grandfather's word?
No.
So, the gun that was taken, there was a burglary of the house you were staying at back on May 28th of 2008, wasn't there?
Yes.
And during that burglary, there were certain things that were taken from your room, right?
I think only... Yeah, that's
What
true.
was taken from your room? What is it that you reported that was taken?
$10 and $20 bill.
So there was a total of $30 that were taken, right?
Yes. Yes.
There wasn't, your laptop wasn't taken, right?
No, my laptop was with me.
Well, I thought, do you remember that you actually told the police officers that you were pretty lucky because your laptop was in a hamper sort of thing and the clothes were covering it and it had not been stolen? Do you remember telling that to the officers?
No, I remember there was a discussion regarding the laptop, and I told him I was lucky that I had it with me because normally I keep it in this hamper.
You were here when the officer that went out there testified, right?
Yes.
And you looked at the photographs, right?
Yes.
And so you're saying that you actually had the laptop with you, right?
Yes.
And you were driving around with this laptop, according
Yes.
to you,
It
right?
goes everywhere with me, yes.
So you took it everywhere, you didn't leave it behind, right?
That's correct.
And nothing else was taken from your room, right?
That I noticed, yes.
Well, the officers gave you plenty of time to look around, right?
After they were done, like with their doing what they do, yeah, I looked around.
You're saying that they didn't give you an opportunity to go into your room to see what was missing in order to report it? Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying.
So they did allow you to go into the rooms then, into the room
Yes.
to look. And you were there until approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
No.
So you were there later?
What do you mean by that?
I mean, were you there later than 1 o'clock?
No.
So you were there at 1 o'clock then, right?
I was there at 1 o'clock, but I wasn't there like all day the way you asked.
Right. You were there approximately at 1 o'clock, right?
Yes, my sister and I.
And before but when the detective or the officer testified, was there ever a mention of your sister while you were here?
I don't remember if he asked me or not. If he...
No. When the officer from Wairika testified, was there ever a mention of your sister?
Oh, when he testified, no, I don't think so.
Not at all, right?
No.
In fact, what happened was that you were out of the house and you were called to respond there, right?
I think I was. There was a voicemail left, yes.
But you were called in any event, right?
Yes.
And you indicated to the police that you had been there, the last one to be there, at 1 o'clock, right?
Yes.
And you actually came back sometime after 3 o'clock, right?
I don't remember what time I came back. I just came back as soon as my sister checked her voicemail.
And I know that, so if he said 3 o'clock, then you would have no quibble with it, right?
Sure. No quibble.
Right. And you heard what items were taken, including a .25 caliber handgun. You heard that, right?
Yes, I heard that.
And you also indicated to the detective that the .25 caliber handgun that your grandfather had, according to him, was like a toy gun, right?
Yes.
And at that time, you had a purse, right?
Yes, I did.
And in fact, this is what you carried your items in, right?
Yes.
And this purse, this toy gun purse, could have fit in your purse, right?
I don't know. I've never seen it.
So, how about the gun that you used to kill Mr. Alexander? How big was that gun?
It wasn't very big.
Looked like a toy gun, right?
It looked like a real gun to me.
Well, and it could fit in your purse, couldn't it?
If I removed some other items, it would fit.
So the answer is yes, it could fit in your purse, right?
Yes.
So this occurred on May 28th of 2008, shortly before you left on your trip, right?
The burglary, yes.
And this is during the time, 10 days after you've had this telephone conversation with Mr. Alexander, right?
10 days after what conversation?
The sex conversation that you had on the telephone, which was on the
It would have been
18 days, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So it's 18 days later, right?
Yes.
And so you are still having conversations with Mr. Alexander, correct?
Yes.
And you indicate that, well, I really wasn't going to go visit him, right?
That was not the plan when I hit the road.
Right, that's what you said. That was not the plan to go down there. Yet, when you get to Southern California, you're now at the Starbucks, right?
Yes.
And you're at the Starbucks, and you are sitting around drinking your strawberry frappuccino, right?
No, I just went in and then came out.
Okay, and in the time that it took for you to go in and come out, something happened to your car, according to you, right?
Yes.
There was another series of coincidences here,
Well, I
right?
think it was that time that happened.
Well, no, that's what you sort of indicated on direct examination, that that's when you think it happened, right?
Yes.
How long were you inside of Starbucks?
I'd say 5 to 10 minutes. I used the restroom. There was a long line, and then after I got my drink, I waited for it to be made, and then I went back out to my car
Right.
to get on the road.
And according to you, then you came out to your car, right?
Yes.
And when you came out to your car, you indicated that there were some skaters there, right?
Yes.
And about what time of the day was that?
It was at night.
So what time at night?
I don't know. It
Was
was,
this-
I don't know, sometime between 9 and 10. I don't know. It wasn't too late, but it was at night.
And while you're there, when you come out, you see that there are these skaters laughing near your car, correct?
Not like laughing loud, just kind of snickering,
So they were snickering near your car, right?
as they were skating away from my car.
Right. And there were other cars in the parking lot, right?
Yes.
And it was a pavement kind of parking lot, right?
Yes.
It wasn't dirt or anything like that. And one of the things that you notice when you get into your car is that you see something in front of you, right?
Yes.
And you decide to investigate, right?
Yes.
And were you pulled in, ma'am?
Yes. I was pulled in forward.
You were pulled in forward and there was a sidewalk in front of you?
The sidewalk wasn't directly in front of me, but there was a curb.
So there was a curb and your bumper's right next or in front of that, right?
That's right.
And you're coming out from the Starbucks, which is presumably on the sidewalk, which is what you're calling the curb, right?
No, but the Starbucks would have been behind and to the right of the vehicle.
Okay. So there was this curb there, and you see these individuals. How many were they?
I think there were 3.
And you then, is it well lit? This area, is it well lit?
There are lights in the parking lot.
And you go and you get in your car and you turn the car on and you're getting ready to leave, right?
That's right.
And as you get ready to leave, you turn your lights on, right?
Yes.
And as you turn your lights on, something catches your eye, right?
Not till I began to back out.
Okay, so you begin to back out and something catches your eye, right?
Yes.
Why do you care that something's out in front of you if you don't know anything about your license plate? Why would you even care?
Because it was a reflector. It was reflective, and I just kind of put the two together, like, maybe I should check what that is real quick before I hit the road.
And when you're saying it's a reflector, are you talking about the registration tags that they put on the back of, or on the license plates?
No.
What kind of reflector are you talking about then?
It was kind of like, it just lit up more, like it reflected a lot more than anything else around it. The pavement was dull, it was lit, but like by my headlights, but not like this thing that was bright.
And it was flat though, right?
It was just a flash, so
No. The object was flat, correct?
I didn't see until I got out that it was a flat license plate.
So when you're in a car, you don't even know it's a license plate, right?
No, not till I get out to investigate.
So that means that as you're backing up, you see this something that catches your eye, right?
Yes,
It's about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, right?
yes,
And you decide to go look at it, right?
yes,
And so you look at it and you decide it's a license plate, right?
yes.
Well, ma'am, why take it?
Because I looked right at, well, I pulled back in, turned my car off, and then I looked at my license plate, it had bugs all over the front, minus where the license plate was, and I had just driven some 500-600 miles from Wairika, or
Right.
Reading, and then the license plate that I was holding had a
Right.
ton of bugs of the same kind of like
Sure.
amount. So
Right.
I just kind of threw it in my car and left.
Right. But you never thought to compare it to the one in the back, did you?
No,
In other words, you're taking a license plate that you have no idea whether or not it belongs to you, right?
no, I have an idea.
Well, wait a minute. You didn't check it with the one in the back?
No,
And license plates have numbers and letters on them, right?
yes,
This one had numbers and letters on it, right?
yes,
It could be that it belonged to somebody else, right?
that's possible.
Sure it was, because you didn't take the time, according to you, to go to the back to see whether or not it matched, right?
No,
And so what you do is, potentially, without knowing what it's about, you grab it, right?
I had an idea of what it's about, so I can't say that I didn't know.
Well, you grab it, right?
Yes,
You take it without checking.
yes,
And then you put it in the car, right?
yes.
You put it in the back seat of the car, right?
No, I think it was in the front floorboard.
So you put it in the front seat of the car, right?
The floorboard.
The floorboard.
Yes.
This dirty license plate that has all these bugs on it, right?
Yes,
You decide to go ahead and take it anyway, right?
yes.
And did it ever occur to you to investigate the license plate in the back to see whether or not it matched?
Not right then. I was more concerned about getting in my car and locking the doors.
Pardon?
I was more concerned about getting in my car and locking the doors.
Because you were concerned for your safety, right?
Somewhat, yes.
Well, if you're concerned for your safety, why are you getting out to go check on something that is just shining there?
Well, because I didn't know, I wasn't concerned until I realized that that had happened, so.
Well, no, but if you're concerned for your safety, why are you getting out and exposing yourself?
I didn't get out after the concern arose.
Overruled. Objection, stop speaking until the court rules.
Okay.
You may continue.
I didn't
If
get
you
out
were-
until the concern
Let me
arose.
ask it again. If you are afraid for, you told us that you were afraid.
Can you answer the question before he interjects?
Restate your question.
You indicated that you were afraid for your safety. That's why you didn't check the front license plate, the license plate that you found with the one in the back, right?
No, I indicated that getting in the car and locking the doors was what was on my mind. Checking it with the back didn't occur to me.
But I asked you about it, and just now you said, well, I got in the car, I locked the doors, and I was sort of in a hurry to do that because you were worried about your safety. You said that, right?
It was a concern. I wasn't
Right.
like scared or anything, but it was a concern.
Right. It was such a concern that you did it quickly, right?
I locked the doors quickly, yes.
Yeah, and you turned the car on quickly. That's what you just told us, right?
Yes.
But you were not so concerned about your safety that when you saw something that you didn't even know what it was, you got out to investigate, right?
Not initially, that's correct.
Well, you didn't know what it was initially, right?
I didn't know it was a license plate, so no.
Right. You just said that you thought it was something shiny, right?
Yeah, reflective.
You see something shiny, you're concerned for your safety, and you're backing out, and you're in a place of safety already, aren't you?
You said I'm concerned for my safety, but as I was doing that, I wasn't concerned for my safety.
Ma'am, when you're in the car and you're backing out, and you see this reflective thing, or thing that's reflecting, you are in a place of safety at that point, aren't you?
Parking lot at night, public place, it's pretty safe, I guess.
No, I'm talking inside of the car with
Oh.
the doors locked. You're in a place of safety then, right?
Yes.
So that if anybody's coming at you, if you're concerned, you could just gun it and drive away, right?
I'd have to keep backing out, but yes, I could drive away.
Sure, you're in a position of, if you will, a power at that point because you can back up, right?
Yes.
And you can move forward, correct?
No, I couldn't move forward, but,
After-
after backing up,
Yeah,
yes.
sure. And you could leave if you wanted to, right?
Yes.
But instead of doing that, even though you're concerned for your safety, you see something that you can't identify,
I
right?
was not concerned for my safety at that point. That's the distinction.
Well, you still see something that's really just something that reflects, correct?
That's correct.
And you said that it was flat, right?
I just saw a bright flash when my headlights hit it.
Gone over this 3 or 4 times.
Sustained.
How can you tell us that you saw anything reflective, ma'am, if the reflective materials on the license plate are on the top of it, and you said it was flat? How could you have seen it?
Because it was angled on the curb. It's still flat, but it's still reflected on the lights.
Didn't you tell us when we started this talk that it was flat? Didn't you just tell us that a little bit earlier?
Yes, it's still
And so
flat.
if it's flat, the reflective material on the license plate, would you agree, is on the top?
Only-
Ask me for the end argumentative.
Overruled.
Only if it would have been laying flat, but that wasn't the case.
But isn't that what you told us to start with?
No.
You told us something, according to you, you told us something else.
I didn't tell you that.
Well, let me do this. The front of the car, where you looked to see where your license plate was,
Yes.
you saw that, right?
Yes.
It was flat, wasn't it?
On the front of my car?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Where it would go. So that if there was a license plate that was there, it would also be flat, correct?
Yes, the license plate was flat.
Right. And if a license plate is taken off and thrown or done something to, if that license plate is put on the ground, it would either, if it's flat, would either lay face down, flat, or face up, flat, correct?
If it was in that position, that is correct.
You're saying that, you told me previously that you saw it laying down on the sidewalk. Do you remember that?
No, I remember saying there was no sidewalk there, just a curb.
Okay, that it was laying on the curb, right?
It was leaning on the curb.
So it was leaning on the curb. Was it, you're saying now that the reflective part was leaning on the curb?
Yes. Well, there's a curb, but there's a little bumper, so your car doesn't drive forward. It was on that, against that bumper thing.
So it's like the cinder block, is that what you're saying?
I think that's what it would be called.
And this is the cinder block that you told us that you parked the wheels of your car up against, right?
I don't know that I touched the cinder block with the wheels, but I pulled into that space.
Well, yeah, you told us that the front of the car came up to the sidewalk area. Do you remember just telling us that?
There is no sidewalk there.
Or it came up to the area where the cinder block was. Do you remember telling us that?
Yes.
Objection, relevance, that's
Overruled.
So if you came up to the cinder block with the front of your car, which is what you told us, right?
Yes.
And this is the cinder block right here, and this is your car. What you are now telling us is that that license plate, as you backed up, is now leaning, standing up on the inside portion of the cinder block so that when you back away, it flashes, right?
That's where it was.
So what you're telling us is that whoever did this took the time to not only take the license plate off, but also took the time to crawl underneath the car, because you now have the bumper there, and put it down inside the cinder block.
Objection calls for speculation as to what somebody did when they removed her license plate.
Rephrase. Sustained.
The car, you told us, was pulled up against the cinder block. Do you remember when we talked, when we started this, that's what you told me?
I said it was pulled into that space.
No, you told us that it was up against the cinder block. Do you remember telling us that?
I remember.
Objection mischaracterizes her testimony, Your Honor.
Sustained. Rephrase.
And when you were pulled in, right?
Yes.
And then you said that you went into this Starbucks, right?
Yes.
And the car, as we're talking about it, there were some people around it when you came out, right?
When I came out, there were some kids, yes.
They were not near the front of your car, right?
I don't know. I didn't see them like in the front crouched down or anything
Right.
like that.
You said they were already kind of gone, right?
They were snickering and starting to skate away from my car.
And you didn't think anything of it, right?
I didn't give it any deep thought.
And the front of the car was next to the cinder block, right?
Well, yeah, next to would be accurate.
Right. And the license plate, as you describe it, was standing towards the driver of the cinder block, right?
It was leaning, so yes. That would
So
be
it was
right.
leaning,
On the
right?
yeah, on my side.
And so as you're backing up, right?
Yes.
It flashes, right?
That's correct.
And you said, oh, you just told us. I didn't know what it was. You remember telling us that?
Yes.
How can you tell us that you didn't know what it was if it's standing up, leaning, and it's got numbers and it's reflective? How can you tell us you don't know what it is?
I'm nearsighted and I didn't get glasses until 2010.
So now you're saying that you're driving and your perception is so bad that you can't see that it's a license plate?
I didn't really see what it was. That's why I got out to investigate.
It was square. Couldn't you see that?
It was rectangular.
Okay, it was rectangular. And it was flashing. Couldn't you see that?
Yeah, it made a reflection.
So that's how you know that it was, that's what caught your attention, right?
The bright flash caught my attention.
Right. And so as you're backing out, we know, or you've driven in California before, right?
Yes.
You know
primarily.
that license plates are reflective, right?
Yes, I do.
And in fact, on one side they have numbers and letters, right?
Yes.
And the numbers are different colors than the background, right? Or the numbers and letters are different colors than the background, right?
Yes, the back is technically white, usually.
Right, exactly. And so you're familiar with that, and you're saying that as you're backing up, the lights are on this rectangular object that's got numbers or letters, whatever they are, and it's got bugs on it, and you're backing up and your headlights are on it, and you say you don't know what it is?
Objection, ask an answer. She said she got out to investigate. She did it 3 times now.
Sustained. We are going to take the afternoon recess. Ladies and gentlemen, please be back in the jury room at 3:25, and we will start promptly at that time. Please remember the admonition, you are excused. Please stand for the jury. The record will show the jury is out of the courtroom. Ms. Arias, you may step down. We are at recess.